How we doing, guys? It's Richie of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I wanted to hit on some of the New York Yankees issues. They're enduring their actual worst slump of the season, and while it's kind of modest, they've lost 5 of the last 6 games. It's definitely concerning to a lot of Yankee fans about, the immediate future, the second half of the year, if they can hold off the Astros for the best record in the American League. I do think it's a slight overreaction by the fan base because, in part, the historic start, first half of the season that the Yankees have had has drawn a lot of comparisons to the '98 team, which, including the playoffs, was the greatest team of all time in terms of winning percentage. I do think that this team does have some similarities to the '98 team, but it's really hard to put them in that breath when this current Yankees team hasn't won anything yet. So I'm going to get into what exactly is wrong with this team right now. What the hell's wrong with the Yankees? For one, I think this team is searching for the perfect place to use former closer Aroldis Chapman. As some of you may or may not know, Aroldis Chapman was one of the better closers in Major League Baseball over the course of the past 8 seasons. A decent portion of that with the Yankees. He suffered an Achilles injury about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and during that time he lost his closing gig to Clay Holmes, who, with the exception of one bad outing against the Reds, has been perfect in that role. And he recently actually broke a scoreless inning streak in franchise history that was previously set by the all-time greatest closer in baseball history, Mariano Rivera. In Chapman's case, I think what's been happening here is the Yankees are trying to find the sweet spot as to what inning to put him in. Barring an injury to Holmes and maybe even an injury to Michael King, I believe that that's the only way you'll see Chapman closing out games. I think they're trying to gradually build up his confidence again and put him in low-leverage situations. Last night he gave up a home run to Dahlbeck, which ultimately cost the Yankees the game. There were other reasons the Yankees lost last night, not getting the game-winning hit with the bases loaded in the 9th and 10th innings. But I do believe that, they're just going through a funk right now, and I do think they'll be all right. Last thing with Chapman, Paul O'Neill made a great point when I was watching the game yesterday. Chapman still has a pretty live fastball. And it seems that when Chapman gets contact, even if it's not in play, he tends to go away from his fastball a little too frequently, looking for the splitter and looking for the slider. And if there's a pitch in Chapman's arsenal right now that he should just ditch until he gets better, is the slider. Last year, opponents were hitting under 200 when he threw that pitch, and this year they're hitting over 300. So personally, I think Aroldis Chapman just needs to believe in his God-given abilities, and he will break out of this funk that he's been in. And I also think that Matt Blake, the Yankees pitching coach, did a great job just sitting Chapman aside. And even though the Yankees are currently in a bit of a slump, it doesn't seem like anyone is truly panicking. Another issue, Joey Gallo's been dead weight. There's really no secret that this transaction, the Yankees trading for Gallo at last year's deadline, has not worked out. Gallo is still an elite defender in the outfield. He has very good speed for a big man and a really good arm. But the true downfall of Joey Gallo in this Yankees lineup and in his Yankees tenure has been that he just simply does not make adjustments at the plate. The shift, which will be banned after this year, is predominantly used by Yankee opponents against Joey Gallo. And that's been an issue that Gallo just can't seem to get around. He doesn't bunt down the third base line. He doesn't have the ability, or at least the desire, to try to go to the opposite field. And he's hitting a career worst, believe 161 last night was what I saw. Only 10 homers, barely over 20 RBIs. And this is normally a guy that hits 35 to 40 home runs a year, which has made it forgivable for the consistently poor average. But this year, in terms of his career, it's been a career worst. He will not be a Yankee next year, even if he plays out the season. And I do believe the Yankees are going to either DFA him or attempt to put him in some kind of trade package with the deadline looming. One of Gallo's teammates, one of his outfield mates, has also been an issue this year. Aaron Hicks. He's lost some of his range in terms of covering center field. Aaron Judge has, for the most part, taken over that position. And he's just having trouble. He was starting to come out of his slump, and he had a scary injury to the shin, only missed a few games. But for the season, another guy that's hitting under 200 and just having a lot of issues. I am not 100% sure if the Yankees are going to completely move on for him, but I do think that his future with the Yankees is going to entail being an extra outfielder, because I do believe that the Yankees will make a move in the outfield to improve what's going on. But having said that, for the time being, it has been a horrendous decision. And it just hasn't worked out to have both Gallo and Hicks in the same lineup. One of them needs to not be playing. I understand that in Gallo's case, you're giving up defense to put him on the bench. But there are more viable options with the bat, and it has cost the Yankees immensely lately. Jameson Taillon and Nestor Cortez. Cortez has been quite the Cinderella story this year. This is his second go-around with the Yankees. They had previously given up on him, as well as the Seattle Mariners given up on him. I do believe that the presence of Matt Blake has turned Cortez into a budding star. He did pitch well against Cincinnati a few days ago, a game that was needed to preserve the bullpen. But I do believe that to a level, Cortez has come down to earth. Roughly a month and a half ago, he was very much in the consideration to not only be the American League starter for the All-Star game, but also potentially a Cy Young candidate. Barring an injury or barring just a bad second half, I think Justin Verlander almost has that sewed up. Jameson Taillon, who's come a long way, has had a rough go this past month. And these two situations, along with the health and the ability for Luis Severino to complete a full season, is a concern with the Yankees. And I do think this could be a reason why they add another arm. I'm going to kind of dive into a solution for that as we move along here. Potential future captain of the Yankees, assuming that the Yankees and Aaron Judge are able to strike a deal in the offseason. He's in a bad slump. His worst slump of the season. He was hitting roughly around 300, and his average has plummeted to under 270. I don't like to speculate, but I do think Judge might be nursing a bit of an injury in the lower extremities. I noticed the other day that when swinging, he was grimacing. Of course, I'm no doctor or an expert, just telling you what I saw. But Judge's slump has contributed to part of the issues that the Yankees are currently going through. A couple more things that are happening with the Yanks. Similar to many Yankee teams during the Aaron Boone era, and possibly even going back to the Joe Girardi era, is that they rely too much on the long ball. And that is a product of guys not being able to move station to station, play small ball. The Yankees have spurts where they play that kind of game, but it's been proven over the duration of the season that this is a legitimate issue. And it is definitely an outcry amongst fans that they want to see guys that are just more pure hitters. I would have to say that the two pure hitters on the Yankees are actually DJ LeMahieu and Aaron Judge, when Aaron Judge is right. I think the All-Star break, which is coming up in just two more games, they have a game tonight with Boston and one tomorrow. I do believe that that's going to help the Yankees immensely. I just think that, there's a lot of peaks and valleys during the season, and right now they are tired. And speaking of fatigue, the bullpen is tired. Today's baseball is very much ran through metrics and analytics, and a lot of the Yankee pen has been taxed. As I alluded to earlier, Clay Holmes has taken over the closing position. Wandy Peralta, I do believe, in his middle role, whether it be pitching in the seventh or eighth, has been a godsend. He's been very good for the Yankees. Holmes, as I said, has been awesome. They're trying to figure out what's happening with Chapman. And as I already stated, in the event that the Yankees do go out and get another starting pitcher, I do believe that a candidate for the bullpen could be Luis Severino. And not because Severino hasn't pitched well, but just because I think he's the most adaptable that can be a long reliever, similar to their glory years, in the role of someone similar to a Ramiro Mendoza. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm being too negative, so I do have some solutions for the Yankees going into the second half of the MLB season. This right here, to me, would solve so many problems. Making a trade for Luis Castillo, who really impressed me during the Reds-Yankee series. The Reds, who were having a very poor season, did take 2 out of 3 in the Bronx. And what I picked up most about Castillo is that it seemed like pitching on the stage in Yankee Stadium did not get to him. A lot of guys get freaked out when they play on such a high stage. And I feel that Castillo proved that that doesn't faze him. The kid has just an arsenal of pitches, and I do believe that he is just approaching the true prime of his career. And should the Yankees trade for him, he can essentially be like Ace B to Garrett Cole's Ace A. The Yankees would essentially have co-aces similar to their counterparts in Queens. And while I do consider Luis Severino as a good pitcher, I do consider Nestor Cortez as a good pitcher. I don't consider either one of them a true ace, although they have contributed to the Yankees' success this year. This goes without saying. Trade Joey Gallo. As I already stated, he's been dead weight. He doesn't make adjustments. And quite frankly, I think he's really in his head because, as I said, some guys just cannot play in New York. And I do believe that Joey Gallo qualifies in that, similar to a Sonny Gray, who was a pitcher of ours some years back. Other players as well. Kenny Rogers stands out. There have been players that A.J. Burnett, they just don't fit into playing in the big market. New York's not for everyone. And while I don't necessarily think the Yankees made a poor decision bringing him in, I think it was worth a look. I think the experiment has failed, and the Yankees have to cut their losses. If they do not find a trade partner, I say DFA him and pay him whatever is on that contract remaining. But they should not be marching him out every day. This is another potential solution. I have to mention it, although I don't think this is something that the Yankees will do for a litany of reasons. Miguel Andujar, in his limited time this year, has played well. He had a good start to his Yankee career, finishing third in Rookie of the Year voting a few years back, falling behind Gleyber Torres and the ultimate winner, Shohei Ohtani. I think what's going on with Andujar here is that there's some bad feelings between the organization and him. He feels that he can be an everyday player. And part of Andujar's holdup and his ascension has been initially they tried to make him a third baseman where he failed. And last year in left field, he also struggled. In his limited time this year, I think he's been better in the field, but I still believe that the Yankees do not feel all that much comfortable putting him in defensively. The Yankees are in no need to necessarily trade him because they do have leverage and control of the situation. But I did want to mention that Andujar could be part of the solution should they finally give up on Joey Gallo. This next solution, I think, is a little more realistic. Matt Carpenter, who is hitting well over 330 right now in limited duty, should be the everyday designated hitter. In order for that to happen, Giancarlo Stanton will have to play the field a lot more frequently. This is the best solution in my mind. I think Matt Carpenter's skill set is perfect for playing in Yankee Stadium, and he hits home runs at a very ferocious rate, considering that he's been an extra player, essentially, and not one that was necessarily considered to be part of any kind of big plan. I mean, going into the year, he didn't have a team, but he's been always a good hitter through the course of his career. There are other options that the Yankees can explore. Other pitchers, maybe not as big name or as notable as Luis Castillo. Andrew Benintendi, that was a big rumor linked to the Yankees. It doesn't seem like they're going to go that route in terms of outfield help because he is not vaccinated. There are other players that could slide in rather well. Anthony Santander, I said, would have been an option, but with the ascension of the Orioles and them actually hanging in the wild card picture, if they were to move talent, I don't necessarily think it would be in the division. So I think he would be out. Potentially Happ, who currently plays with the Chicago Cubs, could be a solution. There are outfielders out there that the Yankees could and should explore into looking into. In closing, I think the Yankees do have a legitimate shot to win the World Series this year. I don't necessarily think they're going to shatter the records that the previous record setters in franchise and in league history did. I'm talking about the 98 team. But that shouldn't be the Yankees' end game here. The Yankees need to get healthy, get refocused, and do a few alterations on this roster. This is a very good team, and Yankee fans need to chill out. You know, they're going through what most teams go through all the time, which is up and down and slumps. Over the course of the past week and a half, it's been a lot more down because the Yankees set a precedent that they looked almost invincible. But it's the season has a lot of peaks and valleys, and it's a very long season. So I do think in the big picture, the Yankees are going to be all right. And like any other season of recent times, the Yankees have to get past the Houston Astros. They have not been able to do that in 3 previous series, 2 that involve these current players. And that's really all I got on this. I will be tuning into the Yankee game tonight. Hopefully they can get off the schneid, and if they win today, that would set up another potential series victory against Boston tomorrow. I don't think even if the Yankees were to get swept, this is an end-all, be-all that the team is imploding. There's a lot of variables as to why these things happen, and as I said already, it's a long season, and it's a sprint. Excuse me. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday. New show coming tomorrow. Idris and my buddy Wags will be joining me, possibly Brett as well. We might be doing a 4-man panel, and we're going to discuss a lot of cool topics ranging from a start bench cut with legendary home run hitters. We're going to give our predictions on the home run derby, and we're also going to dive into some controversial comments that were made by not only John Morant in terms of Michael Jordan, but also of T-Pain in terms of the late, great Tupac Shakur. I have plenty to say on that, as I know my co-hosts do as well. So I look forward to getting that out to you tomorrow. We're shooting for a start time in between 2 and 5, and I will keep everyone updated on that. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, guys.